Next up, we've got Team Feelter. Team Feelter, come on up.
The green one? Yep. Hi, everyone. So Feelter is a mobile app that helps startup CEO actually hire the right people at the right time and as quickly as possible. So my name is Victor. This is our team. We come from different countries, have multiple backgrounds, but beyond that, I think we really enjoyed working together during this 2 months. We had a lot of fun, and I think we're the right team to execute this solution today. So forming the team was really the first step into what I would call our SVIA journey, right? It started 2 months ago. Yeah, like this one. It started 2 months ago during the first demo day, and since then, we pivoted so many times. But what's really important here is, do you see this red line over there? It separates our SVIA journey into 2 parts. The first couple weeks, we basically made every possible mistake. So we had crazy ideas about new technologies, but we didn't even bother to look for a specific problem or a specific customer target. So we were going nowhere. So after this first 15 days, we said, okay, let's shift from this solution-oriented process to a more problem-oriented process. We basically stopped having crazy assumptions. We just conducted as many interviews as we could. We listened, observed, and we tried to identify patterns in their answers to eventually become sort of problem expert, right? And we did this by asking one simple question: what's your problem?
So we needed to find a problem that matters. And to do so, we did in-person interviews with startup founders going from seed to Series B to really go deeply into their lives. And to do so, we actually had the chance to interview more than a dozen of them, spending 30 minutes to even 2 hours with some. And we realized that they really hate going through the process of hiring someone within their startups. Actually, the real problem is that hiring sucks. That is what one of the founders told us. It's extremely time-consuming to do all the interviews for all the potential applicants. And at the same time, is it really costly to actually find those applicants in the first place. But on top of this, it's hard to attract and retain top talent because you're competing against all the tech giants like Google, Facebook, or LinkedIn. All the people we talked to had those problems. And when you look at the industry, you realize that the staffing industry hasn't changed at all. It's always the same process with the same people at the same pace. But online recruiting industry is booming, going from $1.6 billion in 2013 to $23 billion in 2020. So that is why we decided to start Feelter. Feelter is a mobile app that helps startups hire better, faster, top talent. Using our referral system, we empower every startup employee to recommend and refer the top talent within their own social network. So how does that work? For the employee, it's really easy. You basically start a process by just signing up through LinkedIn. Then you go through the list and refer the top talent within your connection, and finally give a little more details about the reason why it should be a good fit for your company. On the other part, for the CEO, you start by defining what kind of person you're actually looking for. And then you simply go through the list of people that have been actually referred by your own employee, and the reason why it should be a good fit for your company. And finally, you select the one you really want to connect with and reach out to them directly on LinkedIn through the app.
So we really believe that this is the right solution just because it solves all the core problems that we have identified during our many interviews. So Loïc, you mentioned how time-consuming the hiring process can be. And with our referral platform, our referral system, all the startup CEOs can forget about the hours spent on AngelList or LinkedIn, even the hundreds of phone calls they would make. They can even forget about the first round of interviews because all of this will be taken care of. Another issue is the trust issue, as you can see. The thing is, when you're leveraging your employees' network, you basically hire friends of friends, right? And as you trust your friend, as you trust your employee, you will trust the people he's referring to. So that's a pretty amazing process. And what I mean by trust is not only that you trust that your new employee will have the right mindset or the right attitude. No, you trust also that he will have the right skills to execute the job you're offering. Because as you know, as a startup, if you don't grow fast, if you don't have top talents in your company, you can die as quickly. The last issue was the culture fit issue. It's probably the most important one in the company, because if your new employee doesn't have the right mindset, it will spread like a virus in your company, maybe eventually kill it. So like I say, when you hire friends of friends, you increase the probability of finding someone that shares the same values, the same mindset when it comes to work. So it solves this problem as well. So now what's next for us? As I say, we kind of became problem expert, I would say, but we're really far from being solution expert. So our next step will be to test our prototype to actually verify if those assumptions are true. Thank you for your time.
Great. Yeah, I love the research that went into this and the fact that you talked to so many of those folks. It's and got to some really folks who are deeply immersed in this ecosystem. So kudos for doing that. What I really like about this is that you focused on building a mobile solution. So I've seen a variety of web-based solutions to solve this problem, but I like the idea of kind of these micro moments of productivity and allowing employees to kind of quickly go through a variety of different profiles that they're connected to and be able to engage in that way. I think a couple of quick questions. One, on the LinkedIn connectivity, I know there's been some challenges around their API use. Have you thought about that? And two, I didn't see anything specifically around referral bonuses or how you're thinking about potentially rewarding or recognizing employees who refer candidates that get hired. So curious on kind of those two questions.
The thing is, we checked about the LinkedIn API and realized that it's actually impossible to scrap all the data from LinkedIn. So the thing that we actually realized is that you can actually partner with LinkedIn through an application form and an interview process to basically being like privileged partners and go through their information and get the data for that. So that's why we wanted to plan to do, and we're like doing research to actually know exactly what are the process to get into this.
If you go down that path, let me know. I know the guy.
Okay.
Thanks.
Your second question was about the bonus, right? You're actually touching, I think, a really good point, because the thing is that we realize that all the solutions on the market are basically, you pay for instance, 10K for a service. You just gave the service, and then you have to pay your own employee by yourself. And what we think about is that we have to show that we're also into the thing, and that we have a win-win relationship between the customers and us. So every time there's a reference and the referral and it's converted, we think that we should also reward the employee by ourselves so that we show that we're actually really involved within the process.
So there's a couple of reasons that I really like the idea, right? One is, obviously as a venture capitalist, we work with portfolio companies all the time, and one thing that they always, right, struggle with is hiring, right? That's just universal across every single company. And one of the frustrating things is that, there isn't a great way for us to help them at scale, right? So certainly if they need like a VP of sales, right, we can go and help find that right person, right? If they need somebody who's gonna, lead marketing, we can probably help find that person. If they need somebody to come in as a VP of engineering and we need somebody who's, we've worked with before, we can probably help find that person. But if they have 15 seats to fill, right, based on the money they just raised, I mean, I have a job too, right? And I can't help fill 15 seats. And so I think, going after startups specifically versus hiring in general is the right kind of like beachhead to go after, right? So that's one thing I really like. The other thing is that when you talk to startup CEOs over and over again, one of the things that matters so much to them, because they're asking people usually to work at a lower than market cash compensation in exchange for stock and so forth, is that these people need to be like deeply bought into the mission of the company that they're trying to build. Otherwise, it just doesn't make economic sense for the employee, right? And by hiring within your network, I think you help address some of that, right? So those are all reasons that I'd like companies in this space, and and we have looked at some of them. But what I always kind of come back to that boggles my mind is that when you look at the companies that have had multi-billion-dollar exits in this space, right? It's companies like SuccessFactors, right? And candidate management systems and stuff like that. And hopefully you guys are too young to have had to deal with these pieces of software, but they're they're pretty bad pieces of software, right? The user interface is like shockingly bad, and just it causes you to wonder, how is it that in the face of all this innovation, these really stodgy old companies, make as much money as they do? And I think part of that reason is that, well, one, they don't just sell to startups, right? They sell to larger enterprises. But when you make that switch from selling to startups, where you're just selling the CEO, and so your product just needs to make sense to the person making the hiring decision, to selling to larger enterprises where you're going to see much bigger checks, you have a difficult thing to navigate, which is that the person making the purchasing decision and the person making the hiring decision, the purchasing decision for your software, right, and the person making the hiring decision end up being different people, right? And so the software that you built that's super, user-friendly for the hiring manager no longer ends up being the one that wins that auction in a way, right? Because a lot of times HR people or whoever runs the process wants to see good, business analytics come out of it, or good dashboarding come out of it, or good whatever, or they want compatibility with enterprise software systems and other random things, right? And so I think if you want to become a $1 billion+ company, thinking about how you bridge that gap is an important part of the journey.
Can I add on to that? Because we actually, in the initial stage, we interviewed one of the head HR for Hilton China, and that's where we realized that we need to focus our problem on startup instead of hiring in a large scale. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
What's interesting about this solution is that, unlike some of the other ones presented today, you don't need scale. What you need is your individuals in one company to download this app with presumably a LinkedIn that they may have. Those are some assumptions there. But it's not something where you have to go out and do a lot of marketing and advertising. It's more of a sell to the HR. And then it's useful. You don't have to hit a critical mass. Given the HR industry today, I'm curious how you are going to overcome the problem of diversity in the workplace, especially with startups. In the San Francisco Bay Area, that's a hot topic right now. And given that your own employees are referring their friends, this is assumption that I don't have validated, but our friends are often like us, and how we might find more diverse talent and individuals for the team.
Answer. So it's actually a problem that we mentioned during our brainstorming session. And the thing is, we're not solving this problem, to be honest. Because, as you said, when you hire friends of friends, you share similar values and mindsets. But the thing is, there's so many problems during the hiring process that we can't solve everything. So we're targeting specific problems. So the time issue, the trust issue, and the culture fit issue. But the diversity issue is something that we're not targeting right now. But as we said, we're far from being solution experts. So as we move on, I hope we're going to be able to solve this problem as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for your insight.
Thank you, guys. More excellent advice from the judges. Thank you, guys. Food Saver, up next. Last up. Here you go.